leave it to Steve. So Steve is the fearless leader of the advisory board, which we thank him for every year. Look at that grin. So he's going to give us some reflections about how we're doing towards as the SBAR team. Take it away, Steve.
Well, thanks, Kim. I really appreciate this opportunity because you know how I love the spotlight and to be a fearless leader. So at least if you want to just go to the first page, we had a great discussion. Just to let the broader team know, I think we had 9 members of the advisory board on the call. Myself, John Holliday from PNNL, J. Roy Moore from Texas A&M, Bill Goldner and Chris Cassidy from USDA, NIFA and Rural Development respectively, Bob White and Mark DeDecker from Bridgestone, and 2 producers, Paul Allerton and Gary Dean, although I'm not really sure if Gary fully joined the meeting or not. I know Kim saw that he was coming in, but good discussion. The thing that the whole team really needs to take some pride in is that the advisory board thinks that everything is going very well and that the progress that each of you is making is excellent. And we're very encouraged because we think that that progress, the progress on specific tools, approaches, data gathering, et cetera, really is positioning this project well for the last couple of years. We think that with a little bit more direct interaction between the executive team and the Bridgestone team, there can be some more work done on whether there are some specific needs that Bridgestone has with respect to decision support tools, or et cetera. That can be handled relatively well, that the teams that exist today and the capabilities on those can transition right into that stuff. Just a general thought along those same lines, we want to keep in mind that this project was about commercializing natural rubber to meet Bridgestone's needs primarily. And I brought this up last year. We talked about it a great deal again today. That every team ought to be looking at it that way. What gaps remain to be filled that would allow Bridgestone to be successful with the initial commercialization of Waiuli specifically? We didn't talk so much about on the guar side with respect to remaining gaps, but I think we've got confidence there too. The extension team is positioned well. Someone commented earlier today that I've continuously cautioned about not letting the extension team get too far in front of the reality of being able to commercialize, because we don't want to create damage for ourselves. We don't want to create expectations that can't be met in the near term. But the feeling of the entire team was that with all of the other information coming in, the extension team should be well positioned here in the last couple of years. And then we determined that the education team is. The education team is doing great. I think we're all, quite frankly, some of us are involved in multiple CAP projects, and honestly, some of the stuff that I heard today is that I saw last year, I'm actually a bit astounded at how well the education team is doing. And yes, Cara, that's the education team is ruling it, as she said. So keep doing what you're doing. Great job there. So those are some general thoughts. Got a couple of pages about some other specific things. That's what Elise started to write. The education team is really doing great work. We talked about making sure that our outreach is commensurate with the kinds of folks we think will be involved in commercialization. So if there's an expectation that we'll potentially be doing a lot with planting or farming of these crops in tribal areas, that we have to have the appropriate outreach to tribal areas. So just something for the team to think about to excel at what you're doing, is that make sure that your focus is commensurate with, you know, practicalities of the program. It's nice from our perspective to see the collaboration that exists within the team, just people making different comments about gathering data from another participant, and, you know, what some of that stuff means, and people asking for information to other team members. That's the kind of interaction that makes these projects the most successful. It's having that level of integration across the team, everybody having some level of understanding of what everyone else is doing and how they can help them. We're really pleased with the progress on the sustainability model. I know it took a couple of years to get here. From the first year, I was impressed with the vision, and that vision has been backed up with execution now. So we're really pleased to see that, because I continue to think that, and others do also, that those models are important to making some final decisions in the last couple of years, and also allowing the team itself to prioritize. You know, if you look at that model, what are big hitters? What are areas where we have less certainty than others? And so having an integrated approach allows, you know, much better team interaction. So again, we view those tools as coming together. That is the way to collect the appropriate data, and when everyone knows that, you know, what the expectations are and what the tools are, that's good. We are pretty pleased with the approach that's been engaged in so far with respect to the resin separation, and we'll comment a little bit more about that in areas of challenge. So very pleased with the progress, but I think we also recognize that, you know, there's more work to be done with respect to valorizing resin value. From a gaps perspective, or from an improvements perspective, this goes back to my initial comment, and that is, you know, my question goes back to the Bridgestone team themselves, is as they think about their interest in actually commercializing in the next couple of years, how do they plan to do that? And are there still some things that are hanging out there where we don't have a lot of certainty with respect to how you might actually scale up, how you create value up and down the supply chain, how you roll it out? So I think that requires some introspection between the team leadership and the Bridgestone team. One of the examples that we talked about, we referred to here briefly, is this rollout concept, but you know, I referred to it as more of a staging model, and we might want to talk to the team about creating a stochastic kind of staging model that takes into account planning timeframes and varietals. And as Bob pointed out, we know that there are natural interruptions to the cycle of harvest and processing due to weather and those kinds of conditions, that we're going to have to use the farm field for product storage, and what that might mean to the individual farmer. So I'm suspecting or expecting that that's a place where we might want to do some work that hasn't been really well defined up to this point. I'll, you know, reserve my opinion for whether that's the case after we do a little bit more work here over the next half year or so with respect to concepts of scaling up. Again, I mentioned this, the uncertainty on the uncertainty remaining on the value of resin, not only for the components that we've identified, but we still have a pretty reasonable size chunk of that resin that we don't understand as well. that we may not be able to get at with vacuum distillation, and we may have to consider other kinds of approaches for identification of species in that resin, and then all of the marketing work associated with identifying the potential markets, the size of those markets, the value of those markets, et cetera, to go through and decide, yes, you know, we've got 18 different components, and these 9 are worth pursuing, and these 4 aren't, and you know, we've got a handful of others that we may need to toss in the direction of somebody else. This next comment was with respect to feeding the extension team, basically taking all of the data that's been learned, coupled with the way that you think the business might actually play out, and putting a package together that the extension team can go out and have very detailed discussions with growers, enticing them to grow, showing them very clearly the value proposition, giving them confidence that there's going to be an off-taker there for the material at the end of year 2, et cetera. This issue of scheduling I talked about a little bit before with respect to the rollout model for the business case. And then several of us from the advisory board will be joining the individual teams tomorrow to talk or to listen in on their plans and to have some additional discussion with respect to other areas of improvement for the individual teams. So looking forward, we got a couple years to go. We talked about a couple things that we haven't done yet that probably do need to be done. We know we're coming into an election period, and I don't think that necessarily gives any of us any confidence because we have no idea which direction this is going to go. With an administration change, I've described this to some other folks that we'll be in front of the bulldozer, piled up in the pile of detritus that they're pushing ahead, trying to move forward in sustainability in a bunch of directions. And if the existing administration stays in place, probably not so much. But there's some things that we can do to start taking the messages, the primary messages out of SBAR about the value of these crops in this region and start putting value propositions together. I suggested that likely needs to start at the state level, where you identify the value proposition in terms of potential revenue or gross domestic product, investment, jobs, et cetera, to get some folks on the political side at the state level behind the concept of commercialization. And then that can filter up to federal legislators, and there's a lot of different possibilities about what might happen with respect to future appropriations. Right now, as an example, the BCAP program was like, you know, if anyone has been involved with that program, it's almost tailor-made for this crop, for Waiuli, a crop, a perennial with a significant period of time before the farmer has the opportunity to generate revenue, the cost associated with planting, moving from annuals to perennials, et cetera. But BCAP as a program hasn't been funded for a couple of years. It just hasn't had money appropriated to it. And so, you know, it doesn't make sense now, for example, to start a advocacy program to get BCAP reestablished and appropriated and generate the appropriate BCAP areas in Arizona and New Mexico to allow for biomass crop assistance activity to take place. Huge program, has huge potential, but you know, it needs a concerted effort to get there. Talked about the extension team, pulling that package together. There's some other miscellaneous things that we talked about with respect to things that Bridgestone might want to consider when we're talking about value of bagasse. That was part of the reason I didn't answer Bob's question directly this morning when he asked about the best technology, because it depends on the overall approach that you want to take. Whether Bridgestone is interested in simply selling the bagasse as a commodity, whether there's interest in integrating in with production in some fashion, or even having co-production of fuel and other products on site at the same facility that you're doing the rubber and resin extraction. So different approaches there. This is just an example. You could, instead of doing a lot of guesswork with respect to bagasse value, you could put together a document that characterizes that bagasse and send out an RFP to what I described as about 10 institutions who are in the process of commercializing fuel production right now using various types of bagasse. And then this last item, again, another extraneous thought with respect to crop insurance that could probably be rolled into the top one, or it could be something that we take on more specifically, that we have no idea what might happen with respect to the Farm Bill and future appropriations, but it's quite likely that the team ought to be working in the direction of exploring the availability of crop insurance for Wyoming guar, and making sure that all the data is available that would allow appropriate types and levels of crop insurance to be put in place. And I guess that was it, Elise. All right, and I'll stop talking and give the opportunity for any of my 8 advisory board cohorts to throw in another nickel for anything that I might have missed or underemphasized.
Hi, this is Bill Goldner. Hey, one thing we talked about that we didn't capture on the slides was alternative markets for the bagasse, and we brought up working with the animal production facilities in the region to see if there might be an opportunity there for anaerobic digestion or digesting bagasse with manure and producing natural gas for the California market. That was one of the things that came up.
Yep.
Just want to reiterate too that while there's opportunity for improvement in the model, I think that was also brought up repeatedly. What a good job that this team's done with the model, and it's a good basis and one that we can build upon. So don't want to understate the work that's been done so far on that. We're very pleased with that.
Absolutely. That was a comment across the team. Anybody else? Okay, I would just summarize saying keep up the great work. We're really encouraged. We like what we see from the student engagement. It's one of the things that Bill really highlighted at the start of this program, is that these programs are only successful when every member is engaged, and you know one another, and you're thriving off of one another. Please continue to do that. Bill also pointed out early on the opportunity that this is. This will stick with you as a younger engineer, analyst, etc. And you know, you're going to get some kudos for having been involved in this project in a major way. Take courage, be heartened by that approach, be heartened by your success, and you know, keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully we'll see sufficient data and analysis come out of this group to allow Bridgestone to pull the trigger. None of us can control that, but all the elements are being put in place to allow that to happen, or most of them are. There may still be a few that are out there, and we'll go after those in the last couple of years. But congratulations, everyone. Thanks for everything that you've been doing.
Thanks.